Hi, Leo. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for December of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And Julie Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Hey, Leo, this month's horoscope features several planets bringing great things to your house of productivity. If you'd like further insight, you can get it in a mission orders reading with either Julia or myself. There's a link for that in the text that comes with this video. Well, if you've been watching our horoscopes, then you would know that Juno has just finished her retrograde stint in your 8th house of intimacy, bringing all manner of relationship difficulties, especially in the intimate realm, which could be emotional, leading to lots of emotional storms, or could be sexual, or could even be financial. So it's probably been a rough couple of months, Leo. However, that is done. It's over. Closure is on the way if it hasn't come already, and get ready to just turn the page on that stuff. So happy to bring that news. I also want to say that Ceres is traveling along through Virgo, which is your 2nd house, and has been there for at least a month already. And Ceres loves to be in the 2nd house. This is her home turf. She's very comfortable here. And so she's been busy, like reminding you to get more meticulous and regular about your bookkeeping and your tax preparation and your physical habits around your health, like brushing your teeth in a better way. And so Ceres has brought you all kinds of great stuff as she traveled through your 2nd house. This month, she leaves the 2nd house and moves on into the 3rd house, a little bit more than halfway through the month, around the 19th. And the 3rd house being a house of communication, that can make Ceres' world a little bit more abstract, and she really doesn't like to be in this house so much. She does have a really great appreciation for how very cerebral and abstract economics can be. So you might encounter some economics-based ideas as Ceres moves through the 3rd house, but always make sure that any theory you engage in is grounded in a reality. So Ceres in the 3rd house might continue that tendency to get a little bit more organized in your finances, which can be good. But she's liable to have you getting very distracted when it comes to your physical habits. So it's important to keep up any practices that you've developed in the last 2 months, even while Ceres is moving through the very distractible terrain of the 3rd house. The next thing I want to tell you is about Jupiter, which has been traveling along through your 8th house, bringing all manner of luck to that realm of intimacy and sharing that I described a minute ago with Juno. In other words, Jupiter may have, secured you a great loan, a good mortgage, a car loan. Jupiter may have made your sex life a bit better in the last couple of months, but Jupiter is leaving this house now and getting ready to move on quite quickly into the 9th house and through it. Jupiter has been in this 9th house earlier in the year, and Jupiter loves this house. While he's in this house, he brings you all manner of enthusiasm about growth processes. Jupiter loves to expand your mind, maybe suggesting that you take journeys and travel over long distances, or that you explore cultures that are very different from yours, but are a little bit more close at hand, like that new ethnic restaurant down the street that just opened. So Jupiter loves to expand you when he's traveling through the 9th house, and he'll be continuing through this house for several months yet to come. So enjoy that while it's happening. Julia, I know you've got news about Mars, Venus, and Mercury. What's that good stuff?
Yes, indeed. Hey there, Leo. The big news with Mars is that he's retrograde and has been retrograde for some time now. And that's important because Mars goes retrograde about once every 2 years. So it's pretty significant. And when Mars goes retrograde, since Mars represents action, activity, it's the can-do planet. When it goes retrograde, meaning backwards in the sky from our apparent position on Earth, it's a time of redoing in your life. Now, this cycle is happening in your 11th house. This house represents your friends. It represents any social groups you're a part of, whether they're professional, whether they're personal, things like unions, associations, conferences, all that type of stuff, sports teams, anytime you find yourself in a group. And the 11th house also represents your hopes, wishes, and dreams, which are basically your long-term goals in life. That those goals that kind of keep you motivated towards the future, like owning a home one day or writing a book or opening a business, for example. So with Mars retrograde in the 11th house, you might have to redo how you've been going about your long-term goals. Mars retrograde times are times of frustration and sometimes even increased conflict in your life. So this frustration might pour into your friendship groups or even any groups that you're a part of socially too, as well as professionally. Then on December 7th, Mars opposes the sun exactly in the sky. So that's a very important day to keep track of because we call that maximum frustration day. So that could be a time period where you really, really feel these retrograde Mars in the 11th house issues that I just mentioned. Now, I do have some things to say about Venus. Everybody likes to hear about Venus because she represents beauty, art, relationships, peace, and pleasure. And she starts the month in your 5th house. The 5th house is definitely the most fun house in the zodiac. It represents your children, represents dating, games, creativity, places of amusements like bars, clubs, festivals, that kind of stuff. And with Venus starting in the 5th house for the first 9 days of the month, it's a great time for dating if you're single. Wonderful time for getting along well with your children, no matter what age they are. And Venus in the 5th house can be a very creative time. Leo is a very creative sign. So whatever you like to do, whether it's designing things, crafting, painting, all that kind of stuff, Venus in the 5th just sort of really gets those creative juices going. And then on the 9th, Venus enters your 6th house. Now, the 6th house is a bit more of a serious work-oriented house versus the 5th. And it represents your job, it represents health too, and it represents sort of organization and order in your life. It's the house of rituals. So when Venus comes into the 6th house, it's a really good time for finding pleasure in the rituals of your everyday life, whether that's going to the gym, doing a health routine like making yourself a green smoothie, meditating, yoga, anything that's kind of ritualized. Venus in the 6th means that you're really, really going to be enjoying it. And it's also a wonderful transit for getting along well with the people you work with. So whether you see clients, whether you see patients, whether you see, or whether you just have coworkers or a boss, Venus in the 6th can be just a really good time for getting along well and finding a little bit of pleasure at the job too. If you're single, you might notice that you might get a crush, at the office or at your workplace too with Venus in the 6th. And then Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, wherever we have Mercury is where we tend to be preoccupied, also starts the month in your 5th house along with Venus. So the first week of the month with both Mercury and Venus in your 5th house, there's a big focus on your children, dating, and what you do for fun in your life for the first week. With Mercury in the 5th, you might notice that you are reaching out and connecting more to your kids. You guys are communicating better together. Mercury in the 5th might mean that you're very preoccupied and thinking about dating too, if you're single. And Mercury is a planet that loves to play games, and the 5th house represents games too. So your mind could be preoccupied more with fun and games than like serious work or study, at least for the first week. Then on December 6th, Mercury goes into your 6th house. Again, that house represents your workplace, your health, your routines, your order in life. Now, Mercury does fit well in the 6th house, because the sixth house is naturally ruled by Virgo. So when Mercury is in the sixth house, it's a good time for getting kind of organized, getting your routines together, putting your mind to your workplace, planning and strategizing and even communicating about your health too. However, on the 29th, Mercury is going to go retrograde in this house. So you might start even feeling it a week before the 29th, because that's when Mercury slows down before he stations and then pivots backwards in the sky. So as he's approaching his retrograde cycle, the very sort of last week of the month, there might be a little bit of sort of chaos and disorder to your routines. Maybe you thought you filed things correctly and you can't find any receipts. There could also be more miscommunications at the workplace, or you might also have to review and go back over some health strategies you have too.
Yes, indeed. There are 2 moons and a seasonal change this month that I want to tell you about. The first moon plays off of that Mars retrograde right there in your 11th house. And we do call this maximum frustration day for a reason. Mars retrograde oppose the sun, maximum frustration day, and the full moon coincide, or perhaps I should say collide, on December 7th, landing right there in your 11th house of friends, community networks, and that can be business associates as well, and also your presence on social media. And so it's really, it's a good time to avoid hasty communications with those people. Don't put out those tweets or those messages on social media that are not well thought out and maybe a little bit fiery for the 3 days surrounding the 7th. And avoid fights and conflicts with your friends and among and between your friends and in your communities. The next thing that happens is that the sun is going to change signs. The sun starts the month in your 5th house right here, and I spoke about that last month, so I'm not going to repeat it here. But the sun does move on into your 6th house right around December 21st or 22nd, depending on your time zone. And the 6th house is a house of work, health, service, and personal organization. And wherever the sun goes, we want to bring the sunlight of our high quality attention so that things can grow and expand there, because it's very life-giving. And so this being the house of health, work, service, and organization, it's a really good time to put attention on your personal care routines, the ways that you organize your home and your office so that you can be as efficient as possible. And as the sun moves along this house, it very quickly meets up with the moon in a new moon right here on December 23rd. This one we're calling transactional family relationships, because that moon in Capricorn is pretty emotionally crusty. It's kind of a curmudgeon. And this moon happens really close to the winter holiday this year, which is a time when people typically gather in their families. And then we have this square to Jupiter, who really wants it to be a festive party, but the moon in Capricorn is just not so sure. So it might actually be the kind of moon where, engaging in the transaction for the sake of the transaction, like giving that gift to the family member that you really are annoyed at right now, could be a good way to slide through the holidays with a minimum of conflict. And that's all that we have for you today, Leo. Thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find out more about this month's moons and our video about the astrological influences of 2023 on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the forecast tab. And on our website, you can book a reading with us or take a class. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye.